I stood in the doorway of that luxury villa in the Maldives, my suitcase still in my hand, staring at my daughter's sister-in-law Rebecca frantically shoving what looked like legal documents into her beach bag. Her face went completely white when she saw me, and in that moment, I understood that this vacation wasn't just about excluding the elderly mother-in-law. It was about stealing my daughter's inheritance while I was supposed to be thousands of miles away, unable to stop what was happening. My name is Lorraine Bishop, and I'm 67 years old. My daughter Jessica has been married to her husband David for 8 years, and for most of that time, David's younger sister Rebecca has been a thorn in our family's side. She's 32 years old, unmarried, unemployed by choice, and has spent her entire adult life living off her brother's generosity and manipulating him with guilt about their difficult childhood. When Jessica called me 6 weeks before this trip to tell me about the family vacation to the Maldives, I was thrilled. My late husband Robert and I had always dreamed of traveling to exotic places, but he passed away from a heart attack 5 years ago, before we could make those dreams reality. The thought of finally seeing the turquoise waters and white sand beaches with my daughter and her family felt like a gift. David's firm is paying for the whole trip as a bonus for closing a major deal, Jessica explained excitedly. 2 weeks in a private villa, all expenses paid. Mom, I want you to come with us. You've been working so hard since Dad died and you deserve a real vacation. I was touched by her invitation and immediately started planning. I applied for my passport renewal, bought new swimsuits appropriate for a woman my age, and researched all the activities we could do together in the Maldives. But 2 weeks later, Jessica called me back, and I could hear the tension in her voice. Mom, there's been a complication with the trip, she said carefully. Rebecca is coming along, and she's saying the villa only has 3 bedrooms. She's insisting there isn't enough space for you. My heart sank. Rebecca had once again found a way to exclude me from my own daughter's life. Jessica, I don't need much space, I said. I can sleep on a couch. I just want to spend time with you and see the Maldives. I know, Mom, and I want you there. But Rebecca is making such a huge deal about it. She's telling David that you'll be uncomfortable, that the trip is too strenuous for someone your age, that you'd be better off staying home and relaxing. She's even offered to pay for you to go to a spa resort nearby instead. The way Jessica said it, I could tell my daughter was caught in the middle, trying to keep peace between her mother and her sister-in-law, while knowing something wasn't right about Rebecca's sudden concern for my comfort. What does David say? I asked. Jessica was quiet for a moment. David always sides with Rebecca. You know how she is with him. She cries about their dead parents, reminds him how he's all she has left, makes him feel guilty for having his own family. He's already told me that maybe it would be better if you stayed home this time, that we can plan a special trip just the 2 of us later. I felt anger rising in my chest. Rebecca had been manipulating my son-in-law for years, convincing him that she needed constant financial support, inserting herself into every family decision, and now she was successfully excluding me from a family vacation. But I'm not the kind of woman who gives up easily. I didn't survive raising 3 children alone after my husband died, didn't build a successful career as a legal secretary for 40 years, didn't manage my finances carefully enough to own my home outright and have substantial savings, just to be pushed aside by a manipulative 32-year-old who had never worked a day in her life. Jessica, honey, don't worry about it, I said calmly. I understand. You go and have a wonderful time with David and Rebecca. But I had no intention of staying home. I called the resort directly and booked my own villa for the exact same 2 weeks, using my savings and my late husband's life insurance money that I had been carefully investing. If Rebecca didn't want me in their villa, fine. I would be in the Maldives anyway, able to spend time with my daughter during the day while maintaining my independence. I didn't tell Jessica what I was planning. I knew she would worry or feel caught in the middle. I would simply show up, present my daughter with a fait accompli, and make it clear that Rebecca's manipulation wouldn't keep me from my family. The flight to the Maldives was long but exciting. I had never traveled internationally alone before, and there was something empowering about navigating airports, currency exchange, and customs by myself at 67 years old. When I finally arrived at the resort and saw those impossible blue waters and pristine beaches, I felt Robert's presence with me. as if he was finally seeing this dream alongside me. I checked into my villa, which was beautiful and private, connected by a wooden walkway over the crystal-clear water. I had paid extra for an overwater bungalow because at my age, I've learned that life is too short not to splurge on the things that matter. I texted Jessica. Surprise! I'm in the Maldives too. I booked my own villa. Let's have breakfast tomorrow. I can't wait to see you. The response came back within minutes, a string of surprised emojis followed by, Mom, you're here? This is amazing. Rebecca is going to be so surprised. Let me tell David. We'll come by your villa first thing in the morning. But an hour later, Jessica called me, and her voice was strained. Mom, Rebecca is really upset that you're here. She's saying you're trying to ruin the vacation, and that you're being controlling by showing up uninvited. Jessica, I'm not trying to ruin anything, I said firmly. I'm in my own villa paying my own way. I'm not imposing on anyone. I simply wanted to vacation in the same location as my daughter. Is that really so terrible? No, of course not. I'm happy you're here. It's just, Rebecca is making David feel like you're being manipulative, and now there's tension and I'm stuck in the middle. I felt a surge of protectiveness for my daughter. This was supposed to be her relaxing vacation. And Rebecca was turning it into a drama because she couldn't stand having me around. Tell David and Rebecca that I'll stay out of their way, I said. You and I can have breakfast together tomorrow, just the two of us. They don't even have to see me if they don't want to. The next morning, I woke early and walked to the resort's restaurant where Jessica and I had agreed to meet. The sunrise over the Indian Ocean was breathtaking, and I felt grateful to be alive, to be healthy enough to travel, to be here in this paradise. Jessica arrived looking tired and stressed. We hugged, and I could feel how tense she was. Rough night? I asked gently. Rebecca and David argued for hours about you being here, Jessica admitted. Rebecca kept saying you were trying to control everything, that you don't trust her, that you're interfering in their family time. David finally told her to drop it, but the damage was done. The vacation vibe is already ruined. I'm sorry, sweetheart. That wasn't my intention. I know, Mom. And honestly, I'm glad you're here. I've missed you, and I don't see why Rebecca gets to dictate who can and cannot vacation in the Maldives. We had a lovely breakfast together, catching up on everything happening in our lives. Jessica told me about her work as a pediatric nurse, about the house renovations she and David were planning, about their hopes of starting a family soon. Speaking of the house, Jessica said, Rebecca has been pushing David to let her move into our guest house. She says she needs a fresh start and our property has that cottage in the back that's just sitting empty. I felt alarm bells ringing. Jessica, you can't let that happen. Rebecca will never leave once she moves in. She'll find excuses to stay indefinitely. I know, Jessica said miserably. But David feels guilty. Rebecca keeps talking about how alone she is, how hard life is for her, how her brother is abandoning her by building a life with me. This manipulation was classic Rebecca, using guilt and victimhood to control her brother and, by extension, my daughter's life. After breakfast, Jessica went back to her villa to spend time with David, and I decided to explore the resort. I signed up for a snorkeling excursion, got a massage at the spa, and generally enjoyed the luxury of having time and resources to pamper myself. But that evening, everything changed. I was walking back to my villa around sunset when I saw Rebecca leaving Jessica and David's villa, walking quickly toward the resort's business center. Something about her furtive manner made me curious, so I followed at a distance. Rebecca went into the business center and approached the concierge, speaking in low, urgent tones. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I saw her pull out a folder of documents and what looked like a notary stamp. My legal secretary instincts kicked in immediately. I had spent 40 years working in law offices, and I knew what legal documents looked like, and I knew that people didn't bring notary stamps on vacation, unless they were planning something that required official documentation. I waited until Rebecca left, then approached the concierge myself. Excuse me, I said pleasantly. I saw my daughter's sister-in-law here a moment ago. She seemed stressed. Is everything all right? The young man looked uncomfortable. I'm not supposed to discuss other guests' business, ma'am. Of course not. I said, slipping him a generous tip. I'm just concerned. She's family, and she's been acting strangely. If there's something wrong, I'd like to help. The concierge looked around to make sure no one was listening. The young woman asked me to witness and notarize some documents. She said it was urgent business that couldn't wait until after vacation. I told her I'm not actually a notary, but I could call one to the resort for a fee. What kind of documents? I asked, my heart starting to pound. I didn't look closely, ma'am, but they appeared to be property transfer documents and something about a trust. My blood ran cold. Property transfer documents? A trust? Why would Rebecca be dealing with legal documents on vacation? And what property could she possibly be transferring? Unless she was transferring property that didn't belong to her. I thanked the concierge and walked quickly back toward Jessica and David's villa, my mind racing. My late husband Robert had been a careful man who had made sure our affairs were in order before his death. He had established a trust for our children with me as the trustee, including the family home and a significant investment portfolio. Jessica was set to inherit everything when I died, or could access portions of it for major life expenses like buying a house or starting a family. The trust documents were kept in a safe deposit box at my bank, with copies in my home office. No one had access to those documents except me and my lawyer. How could Rebecca possibly have anything related to my trust or property? Unless she had somehow gotten into my house and stolen copies of the documents. Unless she was planning to forge my signature and transfer assets that belonged to my daughter into her own name. The realization hit me like a physical blow. That's why Rebecca had fought so hard to keep me away from this vacation. She needed me to be home, far away, where she could break into my house, steal documents, and forge whatever paperwork she needed without me discovering it until it was too late. I had to get into their villa and see what Rebecca was really doing. I waited until the following morning when I knew Jessica, David, and Rebecca would be at breakfast. Then I went to their villa, my heart pounding. The door was unlocked. One of the benefits of being in a secure resort where people felt safe leaving their accommodations open. I slipped inside, moving quickly through the beautiful space until I found Rebecca's bedroom. Her laptop was open on the desk, and spread around it were documents that confirmed my worst fears. There were photocopies of my trust documents, property deeds to my home, forged letters supposedly written by me authorizing asset transfers, and most damning of all, a detailed plan written in Rebecca's handwriting outlining exactly how she was going to steal my estate. According to her notes, Rebecca had hired someone to break into my house 3 weeks ago, while I was at work. They had photographed all my legal documents, including my will, trust papers, and property deeds. Rebecca had then created forged documents transferring my house and investment accounts into a trust she controlled, with forged signatures that a casual observer might believe were mine. Her plan was to file these forged documents while I was supposedly on vacation in the Maldives. Except I was supposed to be at home, not actually in the Maldives. She had calculated that by the time I discovered what she had done, the transfers would be complete and difficult to reverse. She was betting that I was too old, too tired, or too trusting to fight back. But what made my hands shake with rage was the final part of her plan. Rebecca had researched ways to make my death look natural. She had notes about household accidents, medication interactions, falls that elderly people might experience. She was planning to kill me once the property transfers were complete, making it look like natural causes, so that she could keep the stolen assets without me around to contest them. I was standing there, photographing these documents with my phone, when I heard the villa door open. I froze, trapped in Rebecca's bedroom with evidence of her plan to rob and murder me spread across the desk. Rebecca walked in and saw me standing there. For a moment, we just stared at each other, and I saw her calculating whether she could talk her way out of this, or whether she needed to take more drastic action. "Lorraine," she said slowly, moving into the room and closing the door behind her. "This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" I held up my phone showing the photo I'd just taken of her murder plans. "Because it looks like you're planning to forge documents, steal my estate, and kill me to cover your tracks." Rebecca's face went through several expressions. Panic, calculation, and finally a cold hardness I had never seen before. "You were supposed to stay home," she said flatly. "You were supposed to be the sensible, boring old woman who couldn't handle international travel. Why couldn't you just stay in your lane and let me handle things? Handle things? You mean steal from my daughter and plot to murder me? That money should be David's, Rebecca hissed. He's worked hard, he's taken care of me like he's supposed to, and that money from your precious Robert should go to his family, not sit in some trust waiting for you to die of old age. I'm speeding up the process. You should be thanking me for being efficient. I had seen a lot of horrible things in my 40 years working in law offices: greed, betrayal, family members turning on each other over money. But hearing this 32-year-old woman calmly explain why she deserved to steal from my daughter and murder me was a new low. Jessica is David's family, I said steadily. And that money is her inheritance from her father, not yours to steal. Jessica doesn't deserve it, Rebecca spat. She has everything: a career, a husband who loves her, a mother who's still alive. I have nothing. David owes me this. I'm his sister, his blood, his responsibility. I realized that Rebecca wasn't just greedy. She was genuinely unhinged, operating from a twisted worldview where her brother owed her everything, and anyone else in his life was competition for resources that rightfully belonged to her. David doesn't owe you his wife's inheritance, I said. And you're not going to get away with this. I moved toward the door, but Rebecca stepped in front of me, blocking my exit. You're not leaving this room until we figure this out, she said, and I saw something dangerous flash in her eyes. We stood there in a tense standoff, and I realized I was alone in a villa with a woman who had detailed plans for making my death look accidental. I was 67 years old, and she was 32. If she decided to get physical, I wasn't sure I could defend myself. But I had something Rebecca didn't have: 40 years of experience dealing with criminals, abusers, and manipulators through my work in law offices. I knew how to stay calm under pressure. Rebecca, I said in my most authoritative voice, I've already sent copies of those documents to my lawyer. If anything happens to me, he has instructions to immediately contact the police and turn over evidence of your forgery and theft plans. Hurting me will only make things worse for you. It was a bluff. I hadn't sent anything to my lawyer yet. But Rebecca didn't know that. Her face went pale as she realized she might be caught. You're lying. Am I? I held up my phone. I've been photographing everything for the last 10 minutes. Those photos are automatically backed up to my cloud storage, which my lawyer has access to. The evidence is already preserved. Rebecca's hands were shaking now, her carefully constructed plan falling apart. David will never believe you. He'll think you're making this up because you hate me. David will believe the forged documents with your handwriting all over them, I said. And he'll believe the photographs I just took of your murder plans. Do you really think your brother is stupid enough to ignore evidence this clear? I saw the moment Rebecca realized she was caught. Her face crumpled, and she started crying. Not the manipulative tears she usually used on her brother, but genuine tears of panic and rage. This isn't fair, she sobbed. You have everything. You had a husband who loved you, children who respect you, money, property, security. I have nothing. David is all I have, and you're trying to take him away from me. I'm not taking anything from you, I said more gently. But you can't steal from Jessica to fill the holes in your own life. That's not how this works. Rebecca sank onto the bed, still crying, while I carefully collected the forged documents and her handwritten plans. I put everything in a folder and prepared to leave the villa. What are you going to do? Rebecca asked, her voice small and defeated. I'm going to show these documents to David and Jessica, I said. Then we're going to call the police and let them decide what charges to file against you. David will never forgive you for this, Rebecca said bitterly. You'll lose your daughter's family. If that's the price of protecting Jessica's inheritance and my own life, I replied, then that's a price I'm willing to pay. I left the villa and walked straight to the resort's business center, where I made copies of everything and sent the documents to my lawyer back home with detailed explanations. Only then did I go to find Jessica and David. They were having lunch at the beach restaurant, laughing together, completely unaware of why I said, sitting down at their table. It's about Rebecca. David's face immediately became defensive. Lorraine, if this is about her being upset that you're here. It's about her planning to forge legal documents, steal Jessica's inheritance, and potentially murder me, I said bluntly. I laid out the evidence on the table, the forged documents, the handwritten plans, the research about making deaths look accidental. I watched David's face go from skepticism to horror as he realized what his sister had been planning. Jessica was crying, her hand over her mouth. Mom, she was going to kill you? That appears to be the long-term plan, I said. First steal the money, then eliminate the witness who could expose the fraud. David was silent, staring at the documents like he couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. His beloved little sister, the person he had protected and supported his entire adult life, had been planning to rob his wife and murder his mother-in-law. Where is she now? David finally asked, his voice hollow. In your villa, I assume. I left her there after I photographed the evidence. David stood up abruptly. I need to confront her. We all walked back to the villa together, but when we got there, Rebecca was gone. Her clothes were gone, her laptop was gone, and the forged documents I hadn't taken with me had been hastily shredded in the bathroom trash can. David called her phone repeatedly, but she didn't answer. We reported the situation to Resort Security, who confirmed that Rebecca had checked out and taken a speedboat to the main island, presumably to catch a flight off the Maldives. The vacation was effectively over. We spent the next 2 days working with Maldivian police and my lawyer back home to document everything and begin the legal process of charging Rebecca with attempted fraud, theft, and conspiracy to commit murder. David was devastated, cycling through denial, anger, and grief for the sister he thought he knew. I enabled her, he said one night as we sat on my villa's deck watching the sunset. I let her manipulate me for years because I felt guilty about our parents dying, about being more successful than her, about having a life when she didn't. I let her become this monster. You're not responsible for her choices, I told him gently. You loved your sister and wanted to help her. That's not a character flaw. But now you know who she really is, and you have to protect your actual family, your wife. Jessica sat between us, holding both our hands. Mom, if you hadn't come on this trip, if you hadn't discovered what she was doing. But I did come, I said firmly. And I'm not going anywhere. It takes more than a manipulative 32-year-old with forgery skills to get rid of me. Rebecca was eventually arrested when she landed in Dubai on a layover flight. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and she's currently awaiting trial for fraud, attempted theft, and conspiracy. David has cut off all contact with her, though I know he still grieves for the sister he wishes she could have been. The experience taught me that sometimes the people who want us gone from family events aren't just being petty. They're removing obstacles to their real plans. Rebecca fought to keep me away from that vacation because she needed me isolated, unsuspecting, and vulnerable. But I'm not the type of woman to accept exclusion quietly. And that stubbornness, that refusal to let someone else dictate where I could or couldn't go, saved my daughter's inheritance and quite possibly my life. Today I'm 68 years old, still living in the home my husband and I built together, still managing the trust that will one day pass to Jessica. The Maldives vacation didn't turn out the way any of us expected, but I did finally get to see those turquoise waters and white sand beaches. And I learned that being too old for something is usually code for, we need you out of the way. When someone fights that hard to exclude you from family events, it's worth asking yourself what they're really trying to hide.